All right, what's happening, friends? We're back with the Team Growth Mastermind. Andrew Warburton, my co-host, is
Hey,
here,
Dylan.
and we're
Looking
real
forward to
excited.
this, man.
Yes, awesome, and we're really excited today. We have two of the leaders from Team Fast, hashtag Team Fast, out of the Bay Area in California. They are always on the top 1, 2 of the leaderboard in EXP in terms of volume and units, and so super stoked to have a real granular conversation about lead generation, lead conversion, and we have two of the smartest guys in the industry here. I'm fortunate to got to spend lots of time with Elias at EXPCon a couple of weeks ago, and at some previous masterminds is kind of where we all met up. And then he said, I got to bring on my smartest guy, Vernon Williams, to talk about this stuff. So we got Vernon Williams with us and Elias Astuto. Elias is the director of sales and coaching, and Vernon is the conversion coach for the team. And I think that's an important first thing maybe to start with is how did you guys come up with the structure of the job description and the title? Because I think a lot of teams maybe don't have, I haven't heard of somebody having a conversion coach before. So maybe Elias can give us some background on how the origin story of how you guys' roles came to existence.
Yeah. And so first and foremost, appreciate everyone that's going to watch this. And this was intended to be a conversation just to share with you things that don't work and things that ultimately have worked. And so our hope is that this removes friction when you're trying to deploy things within your own organizations. And so if we can remove some of that guesswork and friction, then that's our intent and that's our goal. So to rewind back to your question, this goes back to the development of a role that we call lead scientist. Now, call it a data scientist, lead scientist. We just wanted to give it something that was different. When we think about our roles, we've always wanted to be untraditional. And so when we originally launched the company, there's no other company out there that has a hashtag, right? So hashtag Team Fast. Then we have our editors that are called hashtag the Shredditors, right? So it's not like your normal, we have our editing team. So we thought about the leads department as its own mechanism inside of the big machine. As a mechanism, we wanted to have somebody in that role that was able to really look at all the data, analyze the data. And now based on the data, that tells the story of accountability and how we should be coaching, how we should be moving forward with the agents in our population. Well, our lead scientist, Dan Sundberg, has done an amazing job building the program and really understanding the data and the analytics of the program. But what we found is that there was a gap. What Dan is really good at is running the data, running the stats, and running the figures. Where there was a disconnect was who's going to hold the agents accountable to everything that they need to do in this environment. And so what happens is that when you move a standard or when you move a rule or when you adjust a rule, you no longer have a rule and you no longer have a standard. So that's why inserting Vernon was so important. Vernon has been a top converter, and I'll let him share what he's done in the organization. He was going to come in to be a conversion coach. There's a certain lead segment for Zillow Flex, and hey, let's help the people that are struggling with appointment met, appointment set, and let's see how we can coach based on the data, right? Not everyone's going to need the same type of help. So now having Vernon's role as the conversion coach says, okay, here's the data that was created by Dan and other people in the environment. Now somebody go in the trenches and hold these people accountable or remove them from the program if they're not going to perform at the level of the standards of the program. I like you, you're great, but all I'm going to do is coach you based on the data. That's it. And so we had a lead scientist, but what we needed a Vernon to make sure that all that data and that story of accountability was held to a very high standard. And that's what gave birth to this role, the conversion coach. And since his role, we've seen our numbers skyrocket. And so he could talk a little bit more about that. But we needed someone to be on the field saying, no, run that again. Nope, run that again. Nope, run that again. And that's what's been so important for his role in the impact of our leads department as a whole, not just Zillow Flex.
Hey, Elias, for people watching this, we had so many questions after the last episode. Give us an idea, mate, of just the real numbers, Like how many transactions you guys, I know it's just a ton. How many transactions you're going to close out like in 2024? Most of us, there was a little bit of a rollback from 2023. Let's face it, the market changed.
Yeah.
And what percentage of those is internet-based leads? That's what everybody wants to know.
It's a good question. So our company this year will do right around 600 million in volume. So we'll sell close to 1,000 homes this year, probably a little bit shy of that. But when I look at this, I look at it from how did the industry do overall? Well, in our market, in some markets specifically, we were down 30 to 40% year-over-year sales. Well, our team is only about 10% down. So when I think about the growth, we are smoking the market. Plus, we have less agents that we had than last year. So our per agent count will be up. Our volume will be up despite the changes in our market. When we look at the overall picture, hierarchy of our company and our overall production, company generated leads, online leads, those equate for about 12% of all of our company dollar. So it's important to our organization. We have a very select group of people on that, but our company is not dependent on online leads. However, it's amazing to have those partnerships, but we've never been dependent. So we're about 12, on an average, 12 to 15% of overall company dollar is from online leads.
And so the other 88% from more conventional methods?
Correct. 49% of all of our company generated business comes from Sphere and from referrals and from social media. And the other sources are made up, pieces of the pie. But yeah, that's our largest resource, largest source of business is self-gen referrals and SOI business.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Those are fantastic stats. On the digital leads, on the online leads, right? So a lot of teams, it's 50, 60, 70% of their business. So obviously what you've learned is extremely valuable to people. So on the online leads, give us some idea of numbers, how many inbounds you're generating. And by inbounds, Dylan, usually we're not talking about, just hits on your website, right? But inbounds in terms of a live inbound call or a hit that you convert to a live call. How many live calls between Flex and others are you generating a month inbound?
Yeah, so I'll kind of pass the mic over to Vernon on that in regards to the Flex numbers, and he can share with you those stats. For the seller program, we launched the Zillow seller program. We're coming up on a year. Right now, our average conversion is about 5.5% on a budget of 6%. We're still working through that, learning that program, but we're doing pretty well. Our average amount of leads that we get right now is anywhere between 60 and 100 leads monthly. Now, if you underperform, then obviously they'll reduce that number, but on an average, anywhere between 60 to 100, depending on the month and depending on the season. And so in regards to the other sources, I'll turn the mic over to Vernon.
Yeah, Drew, that's a great question. So I'll just give you monthly average, most recent data. October, we had about 187 leads that came through the Flex program. On average, we convert around 13 to 15 transactions on a monthly basis. So just want to give you some comparable data. Last year, our closed volume was about 51 million, whereas year to date, we're at 75 million closed with about another 26 million pending in closed volume. The goal for us for our Flex program this year is to reach that 100 million sales volume threshold. So we're averaging about 187 leads a month through the Flex program, converting close to 10% of that. We're at about 8%, 9% conversion rate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that be super happy at 8% across the board.
Well, you'd be surprised. Elias gets on my ass regularly about moving the needle.
I believe the guy's a stud. What do you expect?
Yeah, and that's why we produce at the altitude that we produce, because of our leadership. So my responsibility is to take that needle and move it incrementally, whether it's fractions of a percentage point on a monthly basis, because that fraction of a percentage point ultimately accumulates to a humongous shift in the pendulum or the needle as it relates to how we engage with the leads, what our sequences are in reference to our proven processes, which ultimately is going to result in conversion. We're looking to get that number consistently above that 10% conversion threshold on a monthly basis. We're working at 10 to 12 is where I'm looking to move the needle short term, with the ultimate objective of getting it up towards that 15%.
And I think that's the competitor. I mean, sorry, Drew. And when I look at, we know a lot of people that are on Zillow Flex and a lot of our friends and partners. And when I'm looking at the leaderboard, I'm looking at stats and figures that people are historically year to date or since the program launched, like 175% of budget, 200% of budget, 150% of budget. Like, there's no reason that our team can hit those types of numbers as well. But you have to make sure that we're answering the phone, then we're booking the appointment, and then that your appointment set rate and appointment met rate, those need to be almost identical. If not, there could be a low, maybe someone's canceled, but like we need to make sure that those numbers are one and the same. And if they're not, that's the story, right? Vernon could go in and say, hey, your appointment set is at 75%, great job, but your appointment met is at 25. What happens when you hang up the phone, and how are you securing that appointment, and what are you sending the client to make sure that they're connected to you post call? So now
that piece right there is just hugely interesting to me and a lot of my friends around the country. And Dylan and I talk about it all the time. So after you're met, and I'm not a cynical guy, but I'm a realist, right? When you've done this 46 years, it's like you get a little bit real at some point.
46?
46 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, kudos to you, Drew. You've been doing it just about as long as I've been on the planet.
Direct sales, buddy. Nobody would employ me. I had no choice. So my last employer was Xerox Corporation when I was 21 years old. Yeah, wow. And I was riding a horse to work, and yeah, a long time, man. Yeah. Anyway, so we don't want to talk about me. The point, what I want to ask here is a very granular question, right? So inbound calls, 180. Let's call it 200 just for simple math, right? So 200 in. I bet your appointment rate's 98%, right? So you're 196, and then your met with rate is probably, I don't know, 65 points, 70 points, something like that. Is it, or is it higher? Your met with rate, about 70%?
Our met with rate, it ranges between about 50 and 60%. Yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. So then we're trying to develop this thing right now called bridge metrics. So there's the bridge metric, and if I may just very quickly touch on it, is so we've all got these metric points, and Zillow gave them to us, right? You just nailed all the big ones, right? And then offer rate, of course, is another big one. But so number of inbound calls, appointment set. So appointment set is 98 points. And then you get your met with. So let's say your met with is, let's call it 60 points, right? So after met with, the big point is, how many of those get met with again? How many of those have a second appointment after you've met with them? Do you know what that statistic is?
I don't know that number.
Not off the top of my nose.
You know why we don't know, Elias? Because we totally depend on what the agent puts into the CRM. And this is my beef with CRMs, because the agent knows if I don't put in a second appointment, or showing homes, as Zillow calls it, right? If I don't put showing homes in, then Vernon's going to do a coaching thing with me. And if that doesn't go well, I'm going to sit in front of Elias and I'm out of the program. I'm being a little flippant, but you get my point. Right. So I may as well change the status. And so you just don't know. There is no verification process of that status. So what's a bridge metric to us? This, and we're working on it. I'm not pretending to you, Elias, that we've killed this, okay? But we're working on it very hard right now. Your first bridge point is the delta between your appointment set and your met with. So you've got a delta of 48 points there right now. So if you can bridge that delta and reduce that to 24 points, what will that do to your bottom line? And this is the delta that we're working on, because you have this huge delta between appointment set and met with. So how do you bridge that delta? So that's something we're attacking right now. And then your second delta is, you've got met with at 50 points, and then you're going to have an offer rate maybe of, what's your offer rate? 10 points, 8 points, 15 points? Where's your offer rate? 15%?
12 to 15, yes.
And is that 12 or 15 of gross leads, or 12 or 15 of met with?
12 to 15 of met with.
So it's actually 6.
Well, no, 12 to 15. No, it's 12 to 15 of the appointment set, because that's the
so
that we're fixing everything
so 12 to 15, yes. Right? So right. Now you've now got another 35 point delta. So you've got one delta of 50 points and a second delta of 35 points. So I'm telling you, I don't know if it's going to kill me or not, but I'm attacking those deltas this year and going, what is it that is going to bridge those deltas? So that was one of the things.
So quick question for you, Drew. How are you tracking it? Because it seems like it would be, and this is going out to Zillow, and go now to follow-up boss, it would make sense to have those be an option, right? We have appointments that we have showing homes, but that's the first one, right? So a second appointment should be another set of showing homes, third appointment. So that way we could pull a report and we could see, well, on an average, Drew, you go on X amount of appointments before you write an offer. So that way we could see different, like you're saying, there's a bridge of information that we don't currently have because there's no way to track it unless the agent did one showing today. I'm doing another showing tomorrow. I'm doing disclosure review tomorrow. There's no way for us to really track that. So I'm curious to know how that all develops for you. We're on board for that conversation.
Trust me, I've watched you guys, and I was very selfish asking you to come on here because I'm looking for answers for our team. Do you mind, Dylan? Am I talking too much, buddy? Are you cool?
Go ahead. This is good. This is good.
Dylan's used to this. Okay. So let's diverge again for another point here. So what happened, if I understand correctly, you got this number of leads coming in. By the way, I'm absolutely staggered at your volume that such a small amount of it is online. I just think
I wanted to ask, in addition, forget about Zillow, what other online lead sources do you guys have?
No kidding.
Some metrics around that. Google pay-per-click, Facebook, stuff like that. You guys doing any of that stuff?
I would share the actual numbers with you guys, so we have, real data.
Yes, thank you.
I'm gonna pull it up, and I would share my screen but I've tried to do that on StreamYard and it kicked me out of the room, so I'm not going to do that. So as this is pulling up, we have OpCity, we have OJO, and then we have HomeLight. Those were our other bigger sources. We have some smaller ones like Realtor.com, and we are dropping that here. So those are the other lead sources that we have. And let me pull this dashboard up really quick, and then I'll share that with you.
And just for the folks listening, for context, these are all pay-at-close referral type programs, right?
Correct.
We do not pay for any leads up front for our company, for our team.
Wow.
We do 0 PPC leads as a company. We don't do any paid lead ads for our company, and we don't charge additional splits on online leads except for our seller program. Dylan, if you're at a 90% and you're on our seller program, you don't receive 90%. It's a 75-25 across the board for all agents, depending on where they're at in our compensation structure. So that's the only one. Now, I know other teams do things differently. They'll take a higher split for company generated leads. We just don't. So here's some actuals for you. Right now, year to date, our volume as of right now, just so you guys know, total volume sold for this year is 496 million. We have 49 active units. We have 78 pending, and we have 65 million that is pending volume. So total units sold this year is 671. When I look at our stats overall and how it's broken down on our pie chart, 45.2% is sphere-based business. I said 49, so I was off by a couple percentages. Our Zillow total count right now for company dollar is 9.8%.
Wow.
Look at OpCity, that only represents 2.7. Some agents have Redfin, they're at a 2.4 overall. When I look at our Zillow seller program, that's only comprises of 1.9% of all of our company dollar. HomeLight is 0.06 or 0.6. So very, very low on all of the other ones. Our main source is always and will always be Sphere and social media. And when I say social media, I'm not saying that we're running any type of ads, because we are not. It's just agents organically posting and documenting their journey.
So look, sorry, but I'm a numbers geek here, right? So you're at 45 plus 9.8, let's call that 55. Yep. 2.7, 57.7, 58. 2.4, 60. 1.9, 62. That's 62%. What happens to the other 38%?
Past clients, 8.2%. Open houses, 6.3%. Agent referrals, 4.2%. So we have, we can go through all of them. It's lender referrals.
This is the stuff people want to know. It's like they see a team like yours, and they see a guy like you walk on stage, and they just want to start sort of bowing in the front. But the issue is, how do we get? No, I'm not being sarcastic. It's true. I've been around sales nearly 50 years, and I've always admired people who excel. But I'm so inquisitive. I want to know, okay, what can I do better? I'm obviously not doing good enough. What can I do better? And it's when you get these numbers that you can really say, okay, now I can do something with my team, right? So out of all of these, Vernon, are you coaching all of these categories, or are you just coaching the Flex and the Realtor.com?
I am over the conversion for the entire online leads program. So
online leads.
Every outlet, every lead source that Elias just listed, HomeLight, OJO, OpCity, Realtor.com, and the Flex buyer side, so the Zillow Flex piece. I'm over conversion, agent performance, agent accountability, agent development, and recruitment for all of those lead sources.
So Ojo, by the way, now because people hate old guy stories, but 35 years ago, I was doing open houses in Vista, California, and one of the guys that I competed with them was this amazing individual called Chris Heller, and he was the numero uno dude in San Diego. And now I'd call him a friend of mine. We've known each other nearly 4 decades, and he's the one who brought Ojo into being.
Wow.
Nice.
So yeah,
is Ojo, is that Movado or is that?
So it's Movoto. There was like some purchases in there, and they bought the website. You needed the 50 state IDX and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. But Ojo also sell leads. So it's interesting. We also do on our team here the free lead, so to speak, where you pay the referral fee. But anyway, that's the history of that. So Vernon, when you coach then these agents, so I can just tell by you that they like you, so they're going to tell you stuff. The basis of your coaching, if I understand correctly, then is you're looking at the different data points, right? We call them sales milestones. We all got different words for it, right? So there's sales milestones, essentially. Did you meet them? Did you double book? Did you book a second? Did you meet them again? Did you write an offer? Did you put it in escrow? What percentage of this is this, and this is this, and this is this? Now you know where to teach them. And as long as the data itself is indeed accurate, then there's validity to that. If the data is not accurate, then we're all just, it's just wasting our time, right? So, and sadly, very often the data isn't accurate. Like something that we run all the time is how many agents are in showing home status. So we right now have 946 clients in showing home status. Wow. But the issue, Vernon, is they're not. They were showing homes, and then maybe, and I'd love you to speak to this, please, because a lot of us experience this frustration. They were showing homes, and then they'll say, okay, but they flew into Palm Springs and they're not going to come back for 3 months. And I don't want to put them in nurture because Zillow doesn't like too many in nurture. So if they're not in showing homes, where do I put them? Do I put them back to Met-With? But if you put them back to Met-With, when you get with your growth advisor, the growth advisor says, you have way too many in Met-With. Why aren't you showing homes? Well, I couldn't put them in showing homes. They're not coming back for 3 months. You sort of go round and round and round the circle, which is the challenge with CRMs, that you got to find a slot, but the slot isn't exactly where they're at. And so you have these distorted images, right? But having said that, what you do is you go into these milestones and you coach based on the milestones, right? That's what we do. So walk us through that, how you do that. Let's talk about the first delta. So 100, 98, 50. How do you coach that delta?
Well, the first piece is, so I got to give shout out to our lead scientist, Dan, because as Elias alluded to in the beginning of this session is, he's responsible for data management, data accumulation, and then data categorization, right? So I take that data and focus on the first data pillar, which is appointment set, right? So one of the cool things about what we've designed in terms of our online leads program is a whole bunch of analysis metrics and a whole bunch of different platforms and technologies that we use. I'm sure Elias may speak to the Shiloh AI overlay that we've newly integrated into our system that really drives our coaching based upon the dialogue that the agent is having with the lead that's recorded and then categorized and graded and so on and so forth in different areas. So for me, I'm looking at how many leads, how many connections were allocated to an agent. Of those connections, how many of those connections resulted in an effective, efficient, secure appointment set, okay? Which we know Zillow's metric is 60%. And so I'm using that metric, gauging how many of those appointment sets are made. And then from that point, I also take into consideration answer rate. What is your answer rate? Are you picking up the phone? If you're not picking up the phone, let's have a conversation about that. Are you setting the appointment? And we can listen to those conversations. Shiloh can grade whether the appointment was set effectively, clearly, and distinctly or not. Okay. We also encourage our agents to really communicate with all of our leads through Follow Up Boss for the obvious reasons. We know that Zillow and Follow Up Boss are integrating systems. Follow Up Boss has an AI overlay that records the conversation and then kind of grades that conversation as well, so that internally I can hear how you set the appointment. Did you go for the appointment? You were a little weak there in your offer. You weren't as, you weren't as specific. You weren't as ambitious in setting that actual appointment. And I can take that, and that data drives what that coaching looks like, really focusing on first answering the phone. And then when you answer the phone, what is your dialogue? What is your cadence? What is your sequence for that conversation that you're having with the lead that is going to warrant a legitimate appointment set percentage? I start the coaching right from that point there.
Yeah.
And we really hone in on specifics around, like I said, cadence. What's your process? What is the proven process from the moment you answer a call to when you set the appointment? What steps happen in a very granular, detailed flow from receiving that lead to setting the appointment? A, B, C, D, E happens. Okay. What happens from when you set the appointment to meet the appointment? Because as you said, Andrew, we want to address that delta, mirroring what Elias said. We like for our appointment set and our appointment met numbers to mirror one another. And if they don't, there's a reason for that. Oftentimes what I find the reason behind that is their process, our sequence, our cadence. And I'll give you an example briefly.
Yeah, please.
Because I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No, it's great. That's why you're here. Thank you.
When our client sets our agent sets an appointment, the next step in terms of cadence is what happens? You set the appointment, you book the ALM, you set the appointment, you've presented the single property touring agreement and/or the BRBC, you communicate with the seller, confirm the appointment, reconnect with the lead to inform them of what the next steps are going to be. What happens next? On our team, here's the expected proven process. You're going to send a recap email immediately, okay? Recapping and summarizing the context of that conversation with that lead. You're going to create a buyer tour prior to meeting up with that lead. Set that buyer tour, follow up to confirm that appointment a day prior to the appointment. Those are multiple touch points that happen from the initial phone call being received to the appointment actually being set. If we're missing those touch points, okay, it's highly probable that it's going to impact our appointment met rate because we haven't created enough touch points to solidify and capitalize on the conversation that we had while moving them through their proven process. When our agents are actually making sure that they're hitting each step in that sequence between conversation and set and met, we see that those numbers, that delta that you're speaking to, Andrew, it's shortening. Okay. And the numbers are actually beginning to align with each other. Then we take it a step further. Well, when you meet the appointment, do you have something in hand? What is your cadence? What's your sequence? What is your proven process? What are you pulling up to the appointment met with? Is there anything in your hand? Is there a buyer tour? Is there a copy of a buyer consultation? Is there some material about you? I was just having a coaching call, and like I said, I don't want to really monopolize the conversation, but was just having this coaching call with someone yesterday, and we were having this conversation. What do you pull up to the appointment with? And I was kind of showing them what I do, and I can't seem to find it at the moment, but I've got a lifestyle magazine that I branded. I've got a flyer that speaks to who I am, what my expertise is, the markets that I'm an expert in. Put that in a really cool branded fast real estate folder, pulling up with the one pager from the MLS, in addition to the magazine, in addition to the flyer. And I'm putting something of value in there. Right. In addition to the buyer tour. At the conclusion of that initial appointment met, I am a freaking stickler for this, and Elias will attest to that, if you didn't book the buyer consultation prior to you completing that appointment met, you failed. And I'm going to coach you on that, because that is.
Wait a minute. So you said if you didn't book the second buyer consultation.
No, the first buyer consultation.
Buyer consultation.
So you, and I'm glad that you brought this up, and sorry for interjecting. Okay. When you're on that initial call, it's ALM, you book the appointment, right? Okay. Well, most of the time, our agents aren't doing a buyer consult before we get there. We're doing a single property touring agreement. Let's at least get you in the house, form that relationship. And before we leave that house, here's what we do next, Drew. We take all of our buyers through a buyer's consultation so we can explain to you the buying process from start to finish. During our time together, I'm also going to share with you our strategy and how we get offers accepted in this very, very competitive landscape. We're also going to talk about compensation in our formal relationship. We do that via Zoom. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes. Do you want to do that today or tomorrow? What works best? And look at it, go right to your phone. Like you.
Okay, I like that.
And you go right to your phone. It's here's what we do next.
Yes, to finish.
Okay, so now I gotta interrupt there. So that's killer. That's killer. So that Zoom buyer consultation, do you know exactly what percentage between that 98 and 50, what percentage of those have a successful buyer consult?
Well, I can speak
for if you're telling me you still have a 48% attrition after that, I mean, that's a tool like I don't know very many people who are doing that. That's powerful. Do all of them show up? Or you see what I'm driving at? I'm not criticizing, I'm just looking for the answer. Is the attrition that only 50% of the people show up to that buyer consult, therefore only 50% show up for the appointment? Because if 100%, between 98 and 50, if 100% of those people show up for the buyer consult, you would think that at least 80% of those would show up for the appointment if they sit through a 30-minute buyer consult.
Well, the locking in of the buyer consultation, Drew, you're hitting the nail on the head, my man. The locking in of the buyer consultation really does have a direct impact on our appointment met and our second appointment met that you were asking about earlier. Here's the thing. Realistically, not everyone's going to be down to sign the single property touring agreement to even get the appointment locked in. And we know that we don't have a consent to gain access to the property, to answer any questions, pull any disclosure. We can't do any of that. So if they are not willing to initially sign the initial single property touring agreement, that's going to have an impact on our appointment set number. But there's nothing that we can do about that. Right.
You know what's great. You know what's great about this.
I have to interject really quick, you guys, because my obligation was for only 10:30, so I have to run.
You got it. We'll finish with Vernon, man.
This is why having Vernon in his role has been so important to us and to me, because I wrote here that the principles and standards are the absolute. Right? That's the absolute. You need to have somebody like a Vernon that is going to make sure to hold those standards and principles as absolutes and never waver from it. Well, the conversations are very simple with Vernon. Did we do this? Did we hit this? And where are we at? And what are we going to do to improve it? Right? It's not like, oh, we like that person, we should keep them on. They should have more. No, they're paused until they can convert something. So you guys, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I got to go host our team meeting.
All right, my dude. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Elias. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Right. Hey, Vernon. So let's pick it up there. So so this buyer consult, love it, right?
Yes.
So let's just assume that a vast majority of them do it. Then they have the meeting.
Well, let me pause there, Andrew. Like here's the thing. I think we don't have the answer to, but all of us should start having this discussion, and this is why we do these discussions. Is what is a reasonable metric expectation wise? From a conversion standpoint, from that initial showing the first house to booking a buyer consult, right? Because this is new territory since August. This is not something I think we've ever focused on in the buy side. And so now we're heavily focused on it. We have these amazing scripts, these amazing processes, but I haven't even thought about, this is what the aha moment I'm writing down here is, what is a metric that we should shoot for, right? I mean, Vernon, have you thought about this? Like, hey, if I'm meeting with 50 people, how many of them after that initial appointment should I be able to book a buyer consult with? Because I know it's not going to be 100%. That's not reasonable, right? But is it 70? Is it 50? Is it 25? I don't know what that number is.
Great question, Dylan. I would say that at minimum 60%. So if you're taking 6 out of 10 that you actually set the appointment with, you meet the lead at the property or property of interest. Hopefully, if the agent is thorough enough, we will be able to expand that initial showing from that one property of interest that led them to us to potentially 3 or 4, because we want to enhance the time that we're spending with them. And if ALM is facilitated and presented correctly, okay, what you're setting the appointment, understanding the location, really honing in on learning what the motivation is and the markets. And then the question has to become, if I find properties that have a similar property profile within the buying range that you're looking for, can we really take advantage of our time? And as opposed to just seeing one property, how about we see 3 or 4? Would you be open to that? Absolutely, Vernon. Cool. Now I've got some due diligence on my end, because we know the longer time that we spend with a lead, the more connection points we should be able to identify, the more relationship that we should be able to deepen, which is going to play a part in the metrics moving forward. Appointment met, second appointment showing, more offers being written, hence it's going to have a direct impact on our conversion rate, right? So I coach our agents in depth around the extreme importance of that initial setting of the appointment, meeting the appointment, and being extremely specific about our sequences and our actions of what's taken between those two. That's going to result in that 60% converting from that appointment met to a buyer consultation. Here's the game, Drew and Dylan. When I get you to the buyer consultation, you're locked in. Okay. I've sent you some really cool stuff about who I am, found the magazine, putting it in the folder, right? I'm sending a buyer tour. We've got the single property touring agreement signed. I've built a dope relationship. I'm tapping into the elements that are in my environment organically as I'm building this relationship and showing these properties, learning more about their motivation, more about the family's history. And then once we've concluded the showings, okay, here's what we do next. I really want all of my clients to be empowered through education. In the way that I facilitate that is through what we call a buyer consultation. It's about 20, 30 minutes of your time. We do it via Zoom. But my objective, whether you work with me or anyone else, is that you are fully empowered through education. So this will provide a 30,000 bird's eye view of what you can expect in the home buying journey. And then we go like this, and I really emphasize this. Pull out my phone in the midst of the conversation, I got some time tomorrow and Wednesday.
There you go.
Say, what day and time works best for you? And I shut my mouth.
Yeah.
Let them speak.
Yep.
They've seen the value. They've seen the buyer's tour. They've gotten the handout. They've got the one pager from the MLS printout. They're feeling my energy. I'm feeling their energy. And quite honestly, I'm very transparent, and I encourage our agents to be very transparent, whether this is true or not. I encourage them to have this position. Listen, this is an opportunity for me to see if I want to work with you, and for you to see if you want to work with me. Because realistically, not every agent is a good fit for every client, and not every client is a good fit for every agent. Now, I haven't been in the business 40 years like you, Drew, but that's still my position, right? But what that says to the client is something powerful. Wow, look at all this value they've presented just in the first 2 points of contact in terms of engagement. He spent a whole bunch of time getting to learn us. It's not about the real estate transaction. It's about the human interaction, right? Human beings want to feel like they're being heard, like they're being listened to, like they're being, which is the purpose for the recap email. The whole purpose for our agents sending a recap of the conversation is just so that we ensure to the lead that they've been heard. That's it. That's all. So now they feel that they are being handled in a human way through a transaction. So, it's not about sales volume. It is, but that's not the major entry point. The major entry point is human interaction. People want to understand that you care. This is the biggest transaction that they're ever going to facilitate in their entire life. And they just don't want to be sold on anything. So I really advocate for tapping into the humanity, the humanness of the relationship. And then once you've done that, we're the professional. We're the real estate professional. Here's what we do next. Definitive language that's going to direct them down a process that is proven irrespective of the market trends, irrespective of the interest rate, irrespective of buyer market, seller market. That doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to us. What's relevant is the process and the sequences. And so if we can get that, I get that buyer consultation scheduled, man, it's a home run. You know, it's scientifically proven that it takes a lead 7 times to hear the same thing 7 different ways in order for it to land. Okay. I'm a data guy. I'm a data geek myself, Drew. So numbers and scientific theories, they just turn me on, right?
Yeah, right.
Coming from that perspective, you can learn something from that.
Yeah.
So the goal is how many of those 7 touch points, delivering the same message 7 different ways, can I present to that lead within the first 2 phases of the interaction? That's going to ensure a higher probability of us being able to move that lead down the proven process, ending in conversion, which is why we convert on average 13 to 15 leads on a monthly basis, strictly through this platform using this methodology.
Huge.
You know,
huge.
Dylan, listening to this, it just so much wisdom in what's being said here. This is why we're doing this, right? I'm learning like crazy right here.
Oh, wow.
You know, Vernon, I still do think, Dylan, that we're on the edge of, we know the whole industry's changing. We don't need to go into that.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to a period of economic change coming up now. What's really changing, I think, is we're on the verge of a technological breakthrough in how the real estate industry deals with consumers.
Yeah.
What's been an agent-centric business for the last 100 years.
Yep.
Travel is now customer-centric. It's not hotel-centric.
Yep.
Trading, by the way, my Bitcoin just went up 32%. Trading,
they just go all-time high.
Trading is still, it's about the consumer now. I used to have to meet an old guy like me with books on a bookshelf behind him to find out what to do, you know?
Right.
And you know, the more I hear this, Dylan, I realize we're on the edge. You know me, I'm grabbing for it anyway. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars looking for that technology. And perhaps that humanoid interaction, Vernon, nothing replaces the human being, but I do think these deltas are something that even Zillow themselves, I mean, I believe the number's correct. They've dealt with 250,000 agents in the last 12 years.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Right.
250,000 agents.
Right.
And it's not proprietary knowledge. Many of their zip codes across the country convert at 2%.
Yep.
After 250 million agents and a ton of growth advisors, doesn't that tell us something, just something, that something needs to change? And I'm excited for you guys because you're so young. You've got time to make the change. I need to find out pretty quick, or I'm not going to be in this discussion.
Well, you're
and we just got a few minutes left, and I was hoping, Vernon, you shared some real just specific tactical advice, right? Booking that buyer consult would greatly increase your ability to convert that lead. Providing them with 7 touch points in that first 2 interactions greatly increases your ability to convert that lead. Are there any like real specific granular, behaviors, characteristics that you see in agents that make them more successful? Little things that they do that an agent could take away and implement in their business, in their consult, in their interaction that really, has been an aha for you that you've seen in all this coaching?
Man, yes. And this is not a really extravagant answer. It's super basic. Being willing to get into this collective wisdom space of learning and sharing. That's what it boils down to. So every Thursday, I host what's called our conversion clinic, and it is mandatory for agents who are in our online leads program that they attend at minimum 2 of the 4 Thursdays a month. Now, life be lifing, and we should be in production, right? So it would be irresponsible and irrational for me to really expect an agent to be at all 4 Thursdays in the month. I want you to be in production. I want you to be in conversion. However, in the conversion clinic is where we're talking best practices, what's working, strategies, proven processes, sequences, cadences. Share your screen. Show me what you're talking about. What video platform are you using? What is your recap email template? Share your screen. Show it to us. Let's see it, right? What does that correspondence and that cadence looks like? That's required for our agents. You have to be in this conversion clinic 2 of the 4 Thursdays out of the month. Okay. Seeing them in that space, being responsive to not everyone wants to, they're not happy when they see me reach out to them on Slack, because they know if I'm reaching out to you, it's a conversation that we have to have. And there is no emotion in this. There's no emotion in data. Drew, you know that. The data speaks for itself, and the data drives my coaching. So I may have a dope relationship with you. We may have just had drinks the other night. But if your name comes up on my list in terms of you missing a metric, it's time to have a conversation. If you've got 30 connections and you have 0 conversions, I'm cutting the flow off. Period. The end.
Hey, is your conversion clinic in person or on Zoom, brother?
It's on Zoom. Keepitwealthy.com. You're more than welcome to enter the space.
Can I steal that word, that phrase, conversion clinic? Because I absolutely love it.
Let me think about that.
Steal it.
You know what's huge on that, Vernon, is we do. I mean, I need to make a more sexy name like you. I'm gonna rip the name off too. But we just do a scripts call every Tuesday where we do reviews and we do same kind of call, right?
Yeah.
But consistently, the agents that are there every single week are the highest converters.
They're winning.
They're already doing it the best, but they still have the need to feel like they have to improve, right? So it's like there's a direct correlation. The top of the leaderboard are always the ones that are there every single week, and so you're totally right about that.
To your point, Dylan, you're absolutely right. The cool thing about how we've set up our framework is it's mandatory for everyone. I don't care if your conversion rate is 8%, 9%, 0%, 1%, 2%.
They're the ones that are going to contribute to that conversation and tell everybody else what they're doing, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so if you want, because from our perspective, online leads are a privilege. They're company generated, okay? Whether I post a reel, whether, we're big on social media out here with Fast Real Estate. We're like a marketing firm on steroids. It just happens to be in the real estate industry, which is why a lot of our lead flows and our closed transactions come from our sphere and social media. However, whether I post a reel or not, my man, whether I get on in front of my video camera and send something out, it's a time of Thanksgiving. It's a season of thanks. So getting creative. If I do that or not, if my lead routing is on, this phone is going to ring with the possible transaction. That's a privilege, okay? So if you want the privilege of being able to have access to these company-generated lead flows, here is what you will abide by, or you will not have access to these leads. And it's as simple as that. So, once we get off this call, I've got a couple of agents that I have to follow up with because their attendance, their box has not been checked off on their attendance metrics for this month. And I'm about to shut their leads off to get their attention. It's amazing how this works to get their attention. But, hey, there's performance metrics, there's programmatic metrics, and here's the standard. If you're going to be a part of this team, you will abide by these standards. If you don't, you won't. And it's just as simple as that.
Well, I'll tell you flat out, anytime you're down, we've had a lot of your time today. Thank you. But anytime you're down in the San Diego area, you just give me a call, text me, and you got a dinner in the wineries on me.
Oh, man. Thank you, Drew. I appreciate that. Dylan, you didn't extend that invitation, but I'm just going to take it anyway. For
He did. He's Mr. Hospitable. Yeah.
Anytime you want to come to Hawaii, man, I'm going to get you out here.
Hey, I'm looking forward, my man. And hey, don't let this be the last time. I know this was the first time, but we love sharing ideas. We love getting into the collective wisdom think tank, man, because we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
There may be something that you're doing that I may be like, whoa, that's a great idea, and vice versa. That's how we all flourish. It's not about keeping the information in silos. It's about sharing the information so that we all can enhance and grow in our space, which is going to create for a more vibrant service delivery from each one of us, each one of our teams. So I'm all with that. Elias is all with that. But you've got me directly now, man. And anytime you want to invite us into the space, it's always going to be a yes.
Thank you very much.
Sounds good, man. But yeah, I don't know how we can top that. That's an awesome way to end. So
it's fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Vernon. Appreciate you, man. Thank you, Andrew. Good day.
Appreciate your service, man.
Hey, thank you very much, Drew. Thank you for you're a veteran in this game. So I got a lot to learn from you, man.
Appreciate it, man. See you soon. Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen.